Do we survive death? The following two stories might make you think about what happens after we pass. The premonition. The following event took place in Lincoln at Eastern England in the 1970s. Heather Woods and her husband David had been married for 25 years. Both Heather and David were keen pigeon racers, and one day they were planning what birds they were going to send to a race. Suddenly, Heather looked across at her husband, and he seemed to slowly disappear in front of her, and she could see right through him. Heather was unsure whether it was a premonition or whether she was psychic, but she then said to her husband, "We're not going to grow old together, sweetheart." And he replied, "Don't be silly, I'm going to live to be 100, and I'll outlive everybody." But David looked at her and could see that she was not joking. Heather then said to him, "I want you to promise me that if you die before me, you'll let me know that you're okay." David just laughed it off and said, "Look, you know that I believe that when you're dead, and that's it." But then he said to his wife, "If I do continue after this life, I promise you I'll let you know I'm okay." Within 1 year, and true to her vision, her husband was dead. An hour before he passed, her sister was in the room and screamed out, "Ah, did you see that?" Heather asked her what she had seen, and she said that she had just seen a dark grey wisp of smoke. It was extremely vivid, and it rose from David's chest, and then slowly moved to the top of his chest and rose upwards. The grey smoke then drifted up through the ceiling. Heather was sure that it was her husband's soul leaving his body. David had been in a coma, and it appears that his body was releasing this soul that was moving on into the transitional stage. An hour later, her husband died. The time of his passing was 2:50 a.m. in the morning, but Heather did not inform any relatives until 9 a.m. However, at 5:15 a.m., and a couple of hours after her husband had passed, his cousin, who he had grown up with and was very close to, reported that David had paid her a visit. Shortly before his visit, his cousin said that she'd been feeling extremely restless, and he decided to get up and have a cup of tea with a cigarette. She had gone downstairs and felt certain that David was in the kitchen with her. She knew that he was very ill, but had not realised that he had died. She then looked to the corner in the kitchen and saw a wisp of grey smoke, and a voice was saying, "It's me, don't be frightened. Can you give Heather a message for me?" His cousin replied, "I can't do that, it would terrify her." But he said, No, she understands. It's something I promised her. Tell her not to worry. It's all right, and it's lovely here. Just promise me you'll tell her not to worry." He then just disappeared, and she no longer sensed him in the room. His cousin said that the strange experience did not frighten her at all, and it was a lovely feeling. The Visitation. Harry and Elizabeth Evans were a close couple and were both nearly 80. Unfortunately, Elizabeth was in the hospital with terminal cancer and told her husband and friends that she was certain she would die on her birthday, which was Christmas Day. Sadly, her husband Harry was not in the best of health himself and became seriously ill 3 weeks before Christmas and was admitted to another hospital that was nearby. When Elizabeth's family visited her, they did not want to tell her that her husband was seriously ill, as it would only further distress her. However, Elizabeth knew full well that Harry was in ill health and was too weak to visit her. Nevertheless, Elizabeth would always ask her family about her husband's well-being. When the family visited Harry, they did not inform him how seriously ill his wife was, for the same reason that they did not want to cause him any further stress. But Harry still asked about his wife's progress. Unfortunately, Harry passed away 1 week before Christmas, but the family kept it from Elizabeth and felt it would only distress her. Strangely though, whenever they visited Elizabeth, she would no longer ask how her husband was, as she previously had done. They figured that maybe in her heart she already knew that her husband had passed away. On Christmas Day, when the family was visiting Elizabeth, they continued with the lie about her husband, even to the point of saying that they would be visiting him later that day. In a way, it was not exactly a lie, as they were going to visit his grave. Elizabeth only gave them a faint smile and drifted off to sleep. Later that evening on Christmas Day, the family received the news that Elizabeth had passed away, just as she had predicted that she would die on her birthday. When the family returned to the hospital, They made funeral arrangements with the ward's sister, whom they'd become very close to over the previous weeks. Elizabeth's daughter told the sister that it was extremely unfortunate that Elizabeth's husband did not live long enough to visit his wife in the hospital in order to comfort her. However, the sister assured the family that her husband Harry had indeed been visiting his wife and was with her shortly before she passed away. But the family did not believe that this was the case. It was at this point that the sister had been informed that her husband had died 1 week before Christmas. But the sister was adamant that her husband had visited his wife every day for the past week. The sister said that she was certain it was her husband, as his photograph was by her bedside all of the time. And it was not only the ward's sister that saw Harry, as several other nurses were also witness to his visitations. To add further proof, a ward doctor had delayed examining Elizabeth as he did not want to disturb their precious meeting until her husband had left her.